Hello everyone, Flandre here. Today we are going to be fixing the power steering on my OT-64. As you all know, I recently purchased this thing and everything worked on it pretty good except that the power steering wasn't quite as I wanted it. It was very difficult to basically turn it, so I figured there was probably something up with the power steering. So today we are going to actually go ahead and clean out all the lines, just pull the power steering system kind of apart and see if we can get that to allow it to turn these wheels a little better. So it has two axles, the two front axles both turn together, and basically there's a whole hydraulic power steering system that allows you to be able to do that without it being too difficult, as this thing does weigh like 30,000 pounds. So needless to say, it's a little bit hard to turn these wheels without power steering. So we definitely want to go ahead and get that power steering up and running. So today we are going to do that. So hopefully this video will be kind of fun. It's not going to really be a tutorial. I'm just going to kind of show what I did, and y'all, if anybody else has an OT-64 and is looking to do the same thing, this should be a nice little guide for you. So let's get to it.
So now I'm going to do a brief overview of the flow of the power steering fluid and how it kind of goes through the system. I want to give a huge shout out to Jan over in the Czech Republic. He's a subscriber and he was able to help out a whole lot when I had questions about this. He had all these diagrams and was able to translate them for me. So I was able to understand kind of how the system worked, and I was actually able to go through and get this power steering system working thanks to his help. So much appreciated. So really quick here, I'll go over this diagram. On number 1 here, we have the actual reservoir. So that's the hydraulic fluid reservoir. And it goes down this line here to number 2. Number 2 is the gear oil pump. So all the oil is being pumped through the system using that particular pump. It then goes from the pump to an additional oil filter there. From the oil filter, it actually goes to this valve on number 4. This valve allows you to switch it to allow for power, basically steering for the rudder system, which I'm not going to touch, so I'm leaving that system only to use power steering for the wheels. I don't have any intentions on using the rudder system, so I'm going to ignore the rudder system for now. Then the oil flows from that valve to the actual hydraulic cylinder. So number 5 here is the hydraulic cylinder. Oil flows through the hydraulic cylinder system, and there is a return line. As you can see, that goes all the way back to the oil reserve right here. So that's basically how all of that works. All the other lines kind of go essentially to the rudder system, which I'm not really going to worry about. Hydraulic power steering isn't terribly complex. Basically, the input from steering the wheel is just amplified using the hydraulic system that allows it to much easier turn the wheels. So that's kind of the whole idea, but it needs this fluid, and it needs unrestricted flow of this fluid and clean fluid to be able to operate properly.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do here is actually get under our OT-64. As we can see down here, have the hydraulic cylinder. Attached to that hydraulic cylinder here is a line. There are 2 of them, one here, one there. So this here is where oil pumps through. That is the return line. All the oil goes back to the pump from that one. Now, what I did was I disconnected this line first and drained it out. And once again, I did already drain all of the oil, but I'm just showing you what I did. So what I did was I disconnected this line. What happened was oil that was in this line did come out, but a lot more oil came out of the hydraulic cylinder here. And the reason for that is because the oil flowed from the reserve tank through the reserve tank return line, through this line into the hydraulic cylinder here, and then came out of the hydraulic cylinder at this point. And basically just that was how it drained the whole system. This is angled, so it makes sense that it would just go all the way through like that, and I'm also parked at an angle, which helps with that. It might be easier to disconnect that one first, let that drain all the oil out, then disconnect this one and let it drain out just out of the line itself. Now, as for getting the oil out of the hydraulic cylinder here, that wasn't too hard. All I had to do was disconnect both these lines here and disconnect that one. And the lines out. So once you kind of get it all drained out, run an air compressor through the lines, and you can kind of get the rest of the oil out of the lines as well. And then run an air compressor through here, and then I also ran an air compressor through here, just kind of stuck it in there and just blew out all the oil, and just kind of had my pan situated where it would catch all the oil when it's kind of sprayed out of the ends here. And yeah, that was it for that. Now let's go back up into the main compartment. So if we come up into the main compartment here, behind the passenger seat, there is a couple of doors here that block the engine compartment. But as we can see here, this here is power steering oil pan here, our oil reserve, and we can take it apart like this. Of course, you'll need this is just hand tight for now. You will need a wrench to take this off. Make sure you grab that washer. Don't want to lose it. I have already cleaned it out, but when you first drain this, what's going to happen is this here is the return line right here. And this here is where it sucks. And you can see here, this is on the furthest bottom, but that sucks from up here. So it's basically sucking oil in here, down through this shaft, and then through here into there, which goes to the pump. This is the return line, and as you can see, there's quite a bit of space here from where the return line comes up to. So there's going to be a bunch of oil in here on the bottom. And I went ahead and just used a pump and pumped all that oil out. And then I cleaned out the oil pan. A little bit of oil still in there I'll have to clean out. But got it all pretty good. Cleaned out this spring here. And then these are all the different oil filter pieces here, and cleaned them out. So okay, so here are the filters after we pulled them through the dishwasher. So I cleaned them up, put them through the dishwasher, and they're really nice and clean now. Before, they were very dirty. There was like this sand, mucky type stuff was on it, and this like mucus-like substance that was all in the oil reserve tank and all on these filters here. So went ahead and cleaned those all up. I'm going to put them back in the oil filter and go from there. Or rather, put them back in the reserve tank, the oil reserve tank, and we'll go from there. Okay, so to take apart the filter here, I just went ahead and compressed it into my press here, and that just kind of very lightly, just kind of holds it in place. Didn't really put any force on it. That way I can actually go ahead and wrench off the bottom of the filter and take it apart. And I've already got it loose. All I have to do now is basically just I just got my wrench on here and just kind of broke it loose, and now the bottom comes out freely, so I can go ahead and take the filter apart and clean it out. Okay, so now I can take the top off here, and we see here the stem and the filter, and take this part off the top. Okay, so I got the filter out really easy. It was just kind of in there. I just had to like kind of pry on it and pop it out. Came out pretty easily. It's just kind of held with tension by this rubber bottom here on the bottom of the filter. The filter itself was full of oil, as you would expect. I went ahead and dumped that out into my oil pan, my throwaway oil pan, and there's a bunch of like dirt on it in the oil, and there's a bunch of dirt on the bottom of this. So we're going to clean everything out and go from there. Okay, so I ran the air compressor through this hose right here, which goes up to the pump right there, the oil pump. So a little dark in there, but there's the pump. Comes out right there from the pump, and this line right here. So I have both the lines together right here. That's where intake, that's outtake, and I was able to blow through all the oil out of there. So let's reconnect everything. I need to put the filter back in place and then reconnect all the lines, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I went ahead and put the whole oil filter through dishwasher. Everything's all nice and clean now. The filter itself looks pretty good. And I went ahead and also took this coil off of the top here, cleaned it out, put everything kind of through a pressure washer, made sure there wasn't any gunk kind of clogging anything up, and I'm going to go ahead and screw this all back together. It just screws back into the top right here like this. Then we just get it nice and hand tight. So I'm going to put the filter in to here. Just got to press it down until it snaps into place. Get the top put on. Like that. I'll need to put this back into my press so that I can fully tighten it down. Actually, before I screw the top on, I should fill this up with some hydraulic oil. But I'm just going to fill this up a little bit with some hydraulic oil, get like oil all into the filter so it's all nice and saturated on the filter, and then I will go from there. I almost forgot to put the O-ring back on, but fortunately I remembered, and put a little bit of oil on it, stick it on, and now we'll screw this thing back together. Once again here, we're not going to over tighten it, we just want it just tight enough just to make it snug. Slide. And kind of hard to do this on camera, but that should be good. You know, we don't want to break the O-ring or anything like that, so that's good to go. Okay, putting the oil filter back in place, just kind of getting it back on the bracket here. This line here connects back to the one that goes right here. So it just slides into place. Can't really get a good angle on that. It's kind of dark back there, but pretty simple and self-explanatory, as if you took this out, you probably have to put it back in. Then I just have to get this bracket back around it, bolted in place, get the line that goes to the fuel pump attached back to the pan here, and then this line, which connects to the fuel pump, goes to the filter. So let's get to it. The line that pulls oil from the oil reserve is tightened down. Got our fuel or oil filter all nicely bolted up to the mount here. We have its lines reconnected here to, it goes to the oil pump, and the second line here, which goes down to the hydraulic cylinder. So all that's good. Let's go ahead and tie up the lines on the bottom and put some fluid in this thing. Okay, so I believe I got all the lines down here tightened as much as they can go. So hopefully we have no leaks. So you can see right here there is a nipple there that is missing a line that's broken off of it. That is right here. This looks like it's just vents out air, and this line goes up into the cabin so that the air that's vented out of the hydraulic cylinder actually goes into the passenger compartment, which is kind of funny. But it shouldn't be necessary for us to finish this up, and really this is just to keep things from getting gunked up. So I'll need to replace this line and later, but for now let's get some fluid in this thing. Okay, so I went ahead and put some plastic bags underneath these little components that I screwed back together so I can see if anything's dripping out on them, because the bottom of this is really oily right now, so I want to be able to see if any new oil spills out. So the oil I'm putting into this is AW30 hydraulic oil. This is the same spec as VG-30. That seems to be what a lot of people in Europe are using in theirs. So AW32 seems to be the same spec as the European VG-32. So I'll be using this, and we'll see how that goes. The original oil that this thing takes is unsourceable. It's not made anymore. Literally nothing equivalent out there. So this is what other guys are using, so I'll use it too. So kind of pouring the oil into here, I guess the fluid, hydraulic fluid, letting it kind of drain into the system. The oil pump, it's important that it has oil in it, or I guess in this case fluid, hydraulic fluid in it. Everything I've read seems to indicate that they can break if they don't have fluid in it. So kind of letting that drain in, I'm going to put the filters back in and keep filling it. So unfortunately I am sitting at an incline. As you can see, the basically fluid kind of is at this weird angle. I can use this dipstick basically to measure to see if it's at the right levels. It needs to be kind of in this range between here and here, which it is. But I think that should be good. You need to put the top back on and take these back off. But yeah, if we can get this thing moved, then we can actually get it on a level surface and get the right level of fluid in here. So let's try and at least get this thing going. So the next step here is we're going to have to start the whole system, let the fluid pump through, and then bleed the lines, which I should be able to do just moving the wheels back and forth. If I can, that's the difficult part. Okay, so I'm going to leave this little dipstick off of the top of the reservoir here. That should, I think, allow air to port through this, so it'll hopefully bleed properly and get all the air bubbles out of the lines, and we'll take it from there. So after changing the power steering and getting all the new fluid in there, I went ahead and bled the whole system. I basically rolled it back and forth in this spot here and just turned the wheels right and left as much as I can. The wheels really only wanted to turn if you basically have it moving a little bit. And even with the power steering working, that's more or less, if you want to take a sharp turn, that's how you have to do it, is you just kind of have to like clutch in and clutch out, turn the wheels a little bit as it rolls, clutch back in, turn the wheels until you kind of get that sharp turn kind of put into place. But yeah, everything seemed to work a lot better than it was previously. I can now drive this thing around. I went ahead and tried to do a test drive. Unfortunately, I did get it stuck in my backyard, as my property is fairly large, and in the very back it basically becomes a bog, and I didn't realize just how deep the mud was back there, and it bottomed out. But if you saw my previous video, you saw how we did get it back out of the mud. I've cleaned it up pretty good. I still have some more cleaning to do, but I can drive this thing around now and have a whole lot of fun in it. So that is how you change the power steering on the OT-64. I hope that this was informative. I hope that you all enjoyed this. And I will see you all in the next video. Have a good one.
Já jsem uvízla uprostřed toku všeho času, přesto se však vše jen dál a dál točí srdce, opouští mě. Já ovšem nehledám spásu sama v té spoušti, kam nikdy zakročíš, tam, kde spočinu, nedokážu stejnout z místa jako trálenu. V čase jsem zakopla hned v zápětí, co se tu děje kolem mě. Nemám ponětí, jsem bez naděje, sama jsem si jistá. Všechno se mi zdá, nebo už nevidím nic. Má slova jsem bejistá, jsou mi teď vlastně na nic. Ale už mě nebaví víc být jenom smutná sec. Asi odejdu pryč s nic, že nebudu cítit nic. I kdyby smysl mých slov obdržel, čas vypršel. Srdce mi bylo prudce, odešlo i to chvění. Pokud rozběhneš ty dny, já se hnout budu moci. Zda se vše změní a do tmy zmizí uvnitř noci. Kde budu moc žít ve světě, kde jsem vůbec nevím rady, je to bolesti, váživé a nebo smutné, snad to nic neznamená, nevím, snad to není nutné, jsem znevená, schůze už nemůžu dál s klidem žít s tím pocitem, prouze, že neporozumím lidem, smím se vůbec měnit jednou, vyjít z toho kruhu, kdybych vše smetla, vše se změní do světla v den.